The empire built on human bones is a framework for analyzing historical power. It describes regimes where rapid modernization and infrastructure were achieved by treating human life as a dispensable capital expense. In this model, empires operate on necroeconomics. Mortality is treated as a capital expense. When labor is perceived as disposable, infrastructure projects accelerate, ignoring safety standards for the sake of the ledger. This relies on the disposable labor theory, where indentured or forced workers were used for high-risk projects. Death rates in these sectors were often viewed as an acceptable externality of progress. Ultimately, this is structural erasure. The bodies of the victims are literally integrated into the foundations of modern architecture, hiding the true price paid for our global systems. Necroeconomics is the chilling framework where human mortality is treated as a calculated capital expense. In the pursuit of imperial dominance, regimes evaluate the cost of an infrastructure project by subtracting human lives from the ledger of progress. In this brutal economic model, state infrastructure gains are balanced against the cost of human life. When the labor force is perceived as effectively infinite, the loss of life is reduced to a mere externality. This relies on the disposable labor theory. Penal colonies, indentured servitude, and state-sanctioned slavery are deployed to execute projects with high mortality rates. Safety is ignored because, to the state, the laborers are expendable resources. When labor is viewed as infinite, human dignity is erased. The structural foundation of the empire is literally built on the bones of those deemed expendable. St. Petersburg, often cited as the quintessential city of bones. In the 18th century, the construction of this Russian imperial capital demanded an immense sacrifice of serf labor, with estimates suggesting up to 100,000 workers perished due to exhaustion and disease. Centuries later, the Panama Canal became known as the Death Trench. During its construction, over 25,000 workers lost their lives to malaria, yellow fever, and industrial accidents. These sites serve as permanent historical reminders of the ledger of progress. Whether through the marshlands of Russia or the jungles of Panama, these monumental projects highlight the core ethical dilemma of modern infrastructure. Does the resulting global connectivity justify the staggering human cost paid at its origin? Structural erasure describes the process where victims of imperial expansion were physically integrated into the very foundations of the buildings and infrastructure we inhabit today, effectively burying their memory. For centuries, these bodies were considered capital expenses in a ledger of progress. Their physical remains have become the literal bedrock of urban expansion. Today, forensic technology allows us to reverse this erasure. Ground-penetrating radar and LiDAR imaging reveal what lies beneath the concrete. LiDAR technology detects anomalies in terrain and depth, mapping mass graves hidden under miles of modern construction. It brings to light the sites that were meant to be forgotten. Forensic archaeology is now more than mapping. It is a movement to reclaim the humanity sacrificed to imperial progress, bringing accountability to the ledger of history. By the year 2026, the focus of historical research has shifted from simple observation to what is now called reparative archaeology. This approach aims to address the erasure of victims of empire. Using advanced technologies like LiDAR and ground-penetrating radar, researchers are now mapping mass burial sites that were long buried beneath modern infrastructure. Professional documentation tools now provide structured, data-driven accountability, allowing field researchers to log structural remains and burial sites with forensic precision. This forensic work supports a new legislative wave. Governments are debating infrastructure accountability laws, requiring corporations to acknowledge and provide symbolic reparations for the lives lost in the building of historical empires. The 2025 Global Historical Mortality Audit provides a sobering look at how empires were constructed. It challenges the traditional narrative of progress by quantifying the human cost behind foundational infrastructure. The audit reveals a stark reality. Over 60% of primary infrastructure development by major imperial powers over the last 4 centuries relied on forced or indentured labor. When we compare the infrastructure benefit against the estimated human cost, the ledger becomes clear. For every unit of connectivity gained, a significant, often ignored price was paid in lives. This data compels us to rethink the history of modernization. The audit serves as a memorial, ensuring the ledger of progress is finally balanced with the truth of the sacrifice. Traditionally, history centered on the great man theory, the idea that individual visionaries shaped the world. This approach often celebrates monumental leaders and their grand architectural achievements. We are now interrogating how public sculpture and monuments represent the values of society. Do they celebrate the grandeur of the builders or obscure the reality of those who built them? Modern scholarship moves toward a great collective understanding. We are increasingly relabeling historical monuments to reflect their true cost in lives index. This allows the physical memory of the infrastructure to be tied to the people who actually built it, rather than just the state that commissioned it. By shifting the narrative, we transform our understanding of progress, ensuring that the ledger of empire finally accounts for the lives that paid its price. We live in a world defined by the infrastructure of the past. Global trade, rapid travel, and instant communication are the modern miracles of our time. But we must confront an uncomfortable truth. These systems are often rooted in a foundation of systematic exploitation and high mortality labor. The question remains, does the utility of modern infrastructure justify the violent, high mortality origins of the systems that created them? How we choose to memorialize this history matters. Do we celebrate the structure, or do we acknowledge the lives sacrificed in its creation? As we benefit from these foundations today, we must carry the burden of the past. We encourage you to look beyond the utility of the present and recognize the human cost that built the world we inhabit.